Okay, as you saw the hook on the thumbnail of this presentation, it's not a misprint when it says about how to reduce your amount of tardies by 75%. Even more so, I'm going to talk about making dramatic improvements of actually being able to reduce your chronic absenteeism rate. And you could do it for a return on your investment in excess of 1,000%. So for those that are not math, don't worry about it. I'll be able to show you those numbers. But this is legit. Now, for myself, while I was working at Mountain View High School, in the last 10 years, I've been involved with WAS visitations, model school visitations. I've been doing presentations at the California Continuation Education Association for the last 6 or 7 years. And I've always wanted to bring to the conference innovation. So anytime that I would develop something that was inside my classroom, and mainly it was involving technology or software, I came back and shared it with the rest of the community. And so in April of this year, I did a presentation, and the presentation was entitled From Revenue to Cash Flow. And what I did was use an example because I had stumbled upon, for some reason, I was thinking about absenteeism rates and looked at a SARC report, and I saw the number that actually jumped out to me, that was like 79% chronic absenteeism in one school, and I thought that had to be a misprint. Then I went on SARC online and I started researching, and I found out, no, it wasn't. That was not a misprint. And then I started going back over the years, and I saw that this is something that had been a consistent problem. So chronic absenteeism, everybody who's watching this video knows what it is. And the truth is that it was at roughly 25% before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, it just went off the charts for all schools and everything else. It was a big battle until we tried to figure out how to get kids to attend school. But now they weren't attending school. Now they were at home. And so the challenge was, how do we get them involved and engaged about doing their work? And there's a lot of things in scuttlebutt. We already know, we already been there. But that's not the problem. The problem was that most educators was thinking that after we got kids back into school, that the chronic absenteeism rate would drop back to go back to where it was to pre. But guess what? That didn't happen. Even more so was that the continuation schools, by whatever fault in their minds or whatever has happened in there, the continuation schools have been a dumping ground. Really, the kids which were behind, that were behind in their credits, also had the most tardies and the most absences. So when you transfer those groups into a continuation school, you're going to bump up those numbers. So this has always been a problem, but the problem is it's not been dropping. Now I have went in and started researching even all the model schools and the model continuation schools, and I'm seeing the same consistent numbers throughout. And so here's the truth. Okay, it is down 2026 going into 2027. This is 4 years after the students have come back into the classrooms. And if your chronic absenteeism rate is above 25% and it has not dropped down back to where it was before the pandemic, I have a question for you. It's just like the same thing. We've heard it before. If you keep doing the same stupid thing over and over again and expecting different results, you're crazy. So I am here offering you a solution. And a lot of you were thinking about, oh yeah, right, you got a solution. Well, how much? Well, it's going to cost. But I have an offer you can't refuse. That offer is, I'm going to charge you absolutely nothing for one whole semester. Allow you to put the system in place. Okay, to put it in place for your school where you know it's working. And at the end of the semester, if your leadership team is not seeing your numbers based off of what you do your calculations, and I'm going to do mine too, but it's up to you. If the end of the semester you don't see value, then you don't owe me anything. On the other hand, if you do see value, I am expecting the price. Now, I'll be upfront, but it's not even nearly anywhere close to what you're thinking. And the real reason is because this is a concept of what I believe is that this is what I want you to do, which is going to be more valuable to me. It is more important to me that you buy into this concept of what I call an educator, innovator sandbox. Okay? And what is that? What I'm saying is that you need to be able to give tools, better tools to your teachers that will allow them to develop applications that's going to turn things around. And you're going to have to make a change. And change is difficult. I know it is. But I need you to listen to me. Now, I can't put everything in this short presentation here, and I need to try to keep it to 45 minutes and less. I will be doing other trainings, and that's going to take more time. But more importantly, this week coming up here on Wednesday, I'm going to start with one school. But I'm looking for 30 schools. I want a group of 30 continuation schools to adapt this program, because here's the truth. If it works in the continuation schools, it's going to work everywhere else. Okay, so now let's get into it. Now, I just had to share that, and I had to get that off my chest, and it actually helped me where I can relax, because I am very nervous about what I'm about ready to present to you, mainly because I'm just worried that the light won't click on. Okay, that the light won't click on. So with that, let's go ahead and get to it. So now, I'm going to go over and talk about the Educator Innovation Sandbox. Now, part of this, I have a longer presentation, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But let me give you back an example. My first conference, California Math Council Professional Development or conference I went to was in about like 2007, 2008. And there was an Indian research doctor named Dr. Sugata Mitra that did this hole-in-the-wall experiment. And virtually what he did was put a computer in the middle of the jungle with kids that were native Indian speaking, and with no instructions, no teacher, anything else, and just left the computer and went away after 6 months and came back. And he was amazed at what the kids had learned. So this is what I'm talking about, and I'm going to show you evidence. Now, in April, when I presented this concept, it got a lot of enthusiasm with the CCEA, which is the California Continuation Education Association, and teachers. But I wasn't really ready for it at that time point. And I had a principal come to me and ask me about it. And I didn't know what to try to, how to implement it at the time. So since April, I've been working virtually every day on this concept. And then what happened was I have received an email from Karen Lee, who's my mentor, who's at Mountain View High School, saying that the Riverside County Office of Education was soliciting proposals to speak. And so I submitted a proposal and we got accepted. And so I went there with, again, speaking, not getting paid or anything else. And I was going to present, which I did present, my Educator Innovation Sandbox. But the biggest takeaway of what happened at that conference was me attending the session that was right before mine. Because what it did, it actually gave me validated real-world evidence that supports my vision. So with that, I need to stop running my damn mouth and let's kind of go ahead and kick into this. So what I found out was that my Educator Innovation Sandbox was like this hole-in-the-wall experiment, and it got validated at this conference. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but they will be knowing it, okay? That this idea that was put on by the Riverside County Office of Education was a groundbreaking experience, and I think it's going to change, and it's going to put us on the map for what it is about, what actually was given birth during that conference. So I attended a conference session by Jason Slowbe. And what Jason was that he demonstrated the teacher's capacity to build solutions for school problems. He started out when he was somehow helping attendance clerks and asked them about their data, because he is a computer science teacher now. He was a math teacher. Now he's a computer science teacher. But he was on a discussion asking the attendance clerks what they were doing with the data that they were collecting. You know, the number of tardies, the number of absences, and how they were analyzing that information, and they were doing it manually. Well, he's a computer science guy. So he says, well, you're doing it manually. Well, let's go ahead and automate this. And so he started developing scripts and prompts and everything else to automate that situation. And then once he did that, the numbers were just striking, that what he did next was start to write a program in order to make use of the information, to be able to use the information. See, if you have a system that's collecting and telling you that all these tardies, but you're not doing anything with it, no wonder we have a problem. Okay, so that's what happened, and that's the thing. So Jason demonstrated that a teacher capacity to build solutions for school problems. And so my vision is to extend this by providing an upgrade to what he did. And you'll understand as we go through here. But there's the thing. So the thing is that teachers don't have to wait for vendors. And what I connected with this presentation by Jason is that I used to do that. But when I was teaching, I did a website. I created my own website so that I can help solve the problems in my classroom with my students and provide them a better support. But this is going back, we're talking about like 2015, 2016, when I became a doctor, did my oral defense. So teacher innovation, I did. And for years, myself and Karen would go out to conferences for CMC and NCTM and NCSM and talk to vendors. And anytime there was some groundbreaking new innovation in software, we would get it, come back, pilot it, and actually have it working. And then once we were doing it in the district saw that it was working at our continuation school, guess what? They scaled it and they bought it for the whole district. We did that for Remind. I started using the Remind, and that was in place before the pandemic. And because of the Remind system I was using with my students, when we had to shut school, it was no problem. My students were already on. Guess what? My school all started using the Remind system. Okay. And then after the pandemic, when we were bringing back, guess what? Remind got bought by the district. Okay. I used a system called Let's Go Learn. And that was just not, there was numerous things that we use software. Once we used it and it proved that it worked, it got scaled. Okay, so keep that. But the thing is this, that Jason demonstrated that teachers can identify a school problem. They can build a solution using tools they already have. Jason used Google Workspace, and he was able to create a measurable improvement. And that's where those numbers come from. We have evidence. And it not only worked in his school, it also worked in other schools that he shared. So this is a big shift from being consumers of technology to creators of technology. And this is exactly the mindset that I was thinking about with the Educator Innovation Sandbox, but step up, because the Google Workspace is based on providing things for education, but it wasn't something for a commercial application. So therefore it is lacking in its capabilities and manual processes. So what Jason did and what he documented was that teachers can go from consumers to creators. See, Jason is having an experimental classroom, just like I had my classroom. It was an experimental classroom. that the things I was using, it was like an experimental lab. So his presentation, as soon as he started speaking, I started looking at it. He was showcasing how teachers can identify the problem, build a solution with existing tools like Google Workspace and achieve measurable improvements, fostering a creator mindset. A creator mindset. That's the main thing he did. Now, he also demonstrated the following, is that a lot of times you can have small solutions can do a big impact. So his process that he started originally was reducing tardies. Then part of that realized that we needed to improve the parent communication. Okay, that was a problem. Then once we realized we wanted to improve the parent communications, we realized we needed a way to automate that intervention, and that there had to be specific workflows of things that needed to be done. And all of this was going to wind up supporting administrators, therefore giving them more time. And then also in doing that, we realized that when I was thinking about, because I actually have my master's in admin and services, and I was thinking about becoming a principal. Then I realized I decided not to become a principal. One of the reasons mainly was that the fact that the principal was always spending his time occupied dealing with the behavior issues of all the kids. Instead of being able, in my classroom, I can do positive things. But he was dealing with all the behavior issues. Well, Jason, as he started building and fixing one problem and fixing another problem and fixing another problem, he started attacking the biggest problem for his administrator. And that was about discipline. Then he realized was this, okay, that in every school, there is no system for tracking low-level behaviors. Low-level behaviors. In other words, inside the classroom, there may have been a disagreement between two students that the teacher actually broke up. And I've gone through that and done that. But it was in the classroom. So right after that incident happened, first thing, one, I didn't take the time to stop to document it because I handled it and it was inside the classroom. And that is a failure of the system. Because what should have happened was that when that did, as a teacher, I needed to record those low-level behaviors, because that what happened in my classroom could be replicated in another classroom, and maybe it was happening in 3 classrooms, but the whole problem was the administrator didn't know because there's no system existing. So, tracking the low-level behaviors allows the administrators to go talk and pre-talk to prevent problems from happening. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, small level. So the case studies that Jason provided weren't about AI. They were about solving one problem exceptionally well. The examples was reducing tardies, improving parent communications, automating interventions, supporting administrators, and tracking low-level behaviors before they became suspensions. They reduced suspension rates by using the system. And the technology served the process, not the other way around. Okay? Not the other way around. Now, so automation can help create time for relationships. See, by automating administrative tasks, staff can gain back more time. Okay? This may be probably the most important insight that his work that really turned on the light is that across multiple schools, he found that the pattern was consistent. That instead of spending hours processing paperwork, staff spent more time talking with students, okay, because we were documenting those low-level things. And the automation wasn't replacing the people. It just created more opportunities for meaningful intervention. Meaningful intervention. Okay, so you got here and you probably got your curiosity because I was speaking about that 75%. Okay, so now we're going to talk about that. See, because Jason's presentation wasn't theoretical. It included measurable outcomes. And one of those was this. You had one high school that had reduced their annual tardies. Their annual tardies used to be 25,429 tardies in a year. Now, some of you are thinking, God, that's a lot. No. If you start looking at your numbers, because right now, again, what I mentioned, tardies are being, and I do remember as a teacher, I would go in and log in attendance, and sometimes I knew that I had a student that had been missing a lot, and I would go and look inside the Aries system, and I would see all those absences. I remember making comments to myself, oh my God, this person has been tardy 100 times. And it was an isolated case. It was there. But the problem was there was no tardy policy for the school. And two, there was no system. There was no system that they had in existence to actually take action when the student was tardy. They just collected. There was nothing. There was no consequence. A student can be tardy for 25 to 30 times and there was no consequence. Most importantly, here's the thing that was happening. Parents were not being notified on a consistent basis. They weren't being notified. Okay, so this school went from 25,429 tardies, a high school, probably over 2,500 for sure, all the way down to 6,963 within 2 years. A 72.6% reduction through a multi-year strategy. Next, you have one school that also reported and reduced it by 75%. So now we have two other schools besides Jason's own school that have reduced. And Jason's school reduced their tardies by 36% during the first year. And these other schools are using the same system, the same thought process. Now, Great Oak High School reduced tardies by 36% in their first year. Also, he did a middle school. And in this case, it was a Gardner Middle School, and it reduced suspensions. Remember that low-level barrier report of reporting and documenting the little instances that were happening in the classroom? That system reduced suspensions by 30%. Suspensions impact chronic absenteeism. We're talking about the metric. So, in other words, these are not, we're not talking about technology matrix. We're talking about student outcome matrix. Student outcome matrix. So, this is where my vision goes further. When I was speaking with the continuation schools, and we actually spoke about two things. One was about student loans and the fact that we were forcing kids to do a FAFSA application in order to, as a graduation requirement, but yet there was no training whatsoever to teach our students about the student loans. In fact, when I gave the presentation about the student loans, I pointed out the things about interest, and 90% of the teachers which are in attendance that had student loans did not know. But I use that as an example because I had to get their attention about value. They started listening to everything I was saying after I showed them that. But here is where we're at. Jason has developed a prototype. And for what he is showing, he is greatly undercharging what he should be because of the outcomes. Okay. Now, one of the outcomes, and I am going to get into it a little bit, but what are some of the things that in the case studies that the schools did? They all had a clear policy. They established a tardy policy, and they also established what we call tardy tiers, which is the same thing that I was actually speaking back in April to the CCEA about MTS. You need to look at attendance just like MTSS to develop actions for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. They talked about consistency. They had targeted support. They had positive reinforcements. They had parent engagement. They had a support team. They had immediate reporting, campus culture and the school culture change. They did preventive messaging. They did timely enforcements, clear policy, time for personal connections, sustaining success. All of them use that, and those are the things that was part of the system. But he was only able to use the Google Workspace, which means he was limited from sending emails out from a Gmail account. Okay, and they use Google Sheets in order to do this. And his own website, I think, is Student Success for Sheets or Sheets for Schools, the sheetsforschools.com. So, but that workspace, that prototype, it proves that teachers can innovate by building useful applications with familiar tools. So my idea and concept is the innovation sandbox, the accelerator. That what we're going to do is be able to empower educators to build enterprise-grade AI solutions without a development team. Because now with AI, they don't need to know how to code. They just need to be able to write in simple layman's terms, build me a web page and a capture page that parents can opt in to our system. That's all you need to be able to do. Okay, so see, Jason's question was this, really. He said, how can teachers build, he answers the question, how can teachers build useful applications using Google Workspace? That's the question that Jason did with the prototype. But my question is this: what happens when every educator has access to an innovation platform capable of building enterprise-grade AI solutions? That's the accelerator. Now, the other thing, I actually went and did some other research, and I went to sarkonline.org. And what I did, I went to the Great Oak School and I pulled up their chronic absenteeism rates for the 3 years that matched some of the studies. Now, the reason I did that is because I started thinking, because in the classroom, if Johnny it was tardy 53 days, out of those 53 times, I know that out of those 53 tardies and everything else, they were probably the second period, and he missed the first period, which meant that there's a connection between the tardies and the absences, which is connected to chronic absenteeism. So I went to look at their absenteeism rates for 3 years since he's had this system in place. And what I found was consistent with what my hypothesis was, that it was going to directly impact the chronic absenteeism in trailing. So for the 2022, the Great Oaks had an absenteeism rate of 18.7. That was already 5% less than our high school that was in San Jacinto. But then for 2023 to 24, the next year, it dropped 2% to 16.2. 24-25, it dropped another 1.5%. So over 2 years, really a period of 3 years of implementing the tardy system, of improving the tardies, reducing that, it correspondingly had an improvement of 25% in the chronic absenteeism rate. Then what I did was do research, because I'm coming from the continuation school. I went inside their district to find out who their continuation school was for the school district. And what I found there was something striking, that on a consecutive basis, the enrollment at the continuation school dropped. The number of even though the chronic absenteeism rate was virtually consistent, roughly between 77 to 82%, what was happening was the number of students attending was going down. That meant what? The tardy issue that was being solved reduced the chronic absenteeism, which directly impacted the graduation rate, which also went up 3 consecutive years, that reduced the enrollments in the continuation school. Are you listening? Please listen. Okay. So then the other thing was, I realized that when I did my presentation back in April, I used the rule of thumb of speaking about $10,000 for each student. See, the money is based off of the attendance, the ADA. Well, the amount of that each student or each school receives per student varies. And for continuation schools, it's not $10,000. For the one school that I looked at, the continuation school, they were getting $24,000. When I looked at my previous school, it turned out that one year they were getting $32,000 and $40,000, mainly because they were on CSI, because of the other factors. But the end result is that the amount of money for each student that is missing is not merely $60 a day. I found out in just the initial numbers I was doing that could actually come out to be anywhere between $130 and $170 a day. Every day a child is absent is costing the schools $130 to $170 a day. No wonder Michigan is paying students $50 a week to attend their school. Okay, so the sandbox concept is this. You're going to have a software platform, and that software is like a sandbox that gives tools. An AI attendance assistant we can build. We can build a parent communication system. We can build a student success dashboard. We can build intervention workflows. We can do family engagement systems. We can do teacher productivity apps. We can build a tutor with the tools and the platforms without having to understand how to code. Now, the platform that I have been using and working with over the last 8 months is a program that's called Go High Level. And we're going to actually build an ecosystem with this. I've actually already built it and taken all the other guesswork and stuff out. But the main thing is that you're allowed to do AI voice and chat. You're able to do automated parent communications. You're able to do the CRM for family engagement and workflow automations, appointment scheduling, forms, and on and on and on. Anything that a business could be using, like Amazon, is inside this system for you to be able to use. It's a sandbox, though. It's an open sandbox. When you get it, you have the tools, but you need to build it yourself. Just like Jason went to an empty Google spreadsheet, and now he started to populate it and write the scripts in the background, or like doing the formulas in an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so now the thing that we want to understand here is that this initial pilot, I want to focus on continuation schools. And the reason is this: the continuation schools is the ideal test bed, because the students have all faced unique challenges. We have absenteeism rate is 3 times the rate of the traditional high schools. It has the largest absenteeism rate. So you want to go to where the biggest problem is first. They have the worst tardies. There's a problem with disengagement, and continuation schools can benefit most from the rapid teacher-built solutions turning educators. I was able to be absent out of my classroom for 25 days when I was working. And how did I do that? Because I had built myself a teacher website and used applications to stay. So even though I may have been in Washington, D.C., doing a presentation with the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, every day while I was gone at 8 o'clock in the morning, my students I was sending a message to their cell phone on their work. And they were communicating with me via text messaging that I could give them a grade. I can change their grade. I could change their courses. I can send them a little short tutoring video. And I did it all with technology. But when I retired in 2024, all that expertise that I had went out the door. So the continuation schools is where we want to talk, because they have students with credit recovery, the disengagement, the family communication challenges, limited staff, and high intervention needs. See, those are exactly the kind of challenges that can benefit from a rapid teacher-built solution. So instead of purchasing another expensive district program, now what I'm talking about, if you would think on the amount of money, okay, the amount of money, a recent school, 79% chronic absenteeism rate, if you calculated that out at $10,000, was roughly $162,000. Now, we're not talking about $162,000. We're not talking about $16,000. We're not talking about $10,000. We're not talking about $7,500. We're not even talking about $5,000. This is an economical solution where you can see 100%, 1,000% return on the dollars that the district can get into. Now, so here's the new framework we want to follow. And this is a framework for district innovation. We're going to transform districts into innovation organizations. First, what we're going to do is identify the problem. Like in the first one, we're going to start out with tardies. That's the first thing. And then we're going to hit attendance, then behavior, engagement, communication, and parent involvement. These are the problems we're going to go over. Then what we're going to do is develop the teacher prototype. We're going to build a solution using the educator innovation sandbox. Next, we're going to pilot and iterate. We're going to test this in a classroom or a school. We're going to collect evidence, and then we're going to improve on the situation. Then at the end of the semester, your leadership team gets to evaluate. And if it gives the results that we've already shown, then the district is going to have the opportunity to scale across the district and deploy proven solutions to every school because it's already been built. And when you need to make changes, you can do it without going to a software company and asking them to change because you have an education innovation sandbox. So, spoke about a framework. We are in what we call a strategic position here. See, based on what I learned from the Grounds of Innovation conference, it changed my thinking. See, because last week when I attended it, I was expecting to share one idea. Instead, I discovered evidence that my vision may be even bigger than I even imagined. So when I attended the session with Jason, who was a former California Mathematics Council president just recently, he showed how teachers were using Google Workspace to build applications that dramatically reduce tardies and improve school culture. And the results were impressive. A school, think of it, reducing the tardies by more than 70%. Another reduced suspensions by identifying the low-level barriers before they escalated. And as I listened, I realized something. We weren't presenting competing ideas. We were presenting two parts of the same future. See, Jason proved that teachers can build solutions. But now I want you to imagine the following. I want you to imagine giving those same teachers an AI-powered educator innovation sandbox. So the vision is this, that imagine every teacher being able to create an AI attendance assistant, a parent communication system, a student intervention workflow, a counselor support assistant, a classroom website, a voice AI, a conversation AI, dashboards, all without needing a software development team. So that's why we're going to be launching an Educator Innovation Sandbox partner program. Now, we're going to be looking for innovative schools, and those innovation schools initially are going to be continuation schools as my focus. We want them to become founding partners. And together, we're going to build, test, and scale teacher-created AI solutions that improve attendance, improve belonging, improve engagement, and support student success and outcomes. So if your school is ready to move beyond buying software and start creating solutions, we would love to partner with you. So I want you to really listen to this, because the question is no longer whether teachers can build technology. They already are. Just like AI, we're thinking about the kids using AI. They already are using AI. But as teachers, do we want to teach our students to be consumers or builders? And likewise, if your answer is to teach them to be able to build the systems, then it must begin with the teachers. See, a teacher who was developing, just like Jason, he also is going to transform and translate that information to his students, because he can't help but share that with them, which means he is in a better position of preparing his students to be better. Because I know that the skills and things that he was using, he was sharing in his classroom. So the question should no longer be whether teachers can build technology. They already are. The question is whether we will give them the tools to build solutions that can transform our entire school district. That is what we're looking at, because this is a stronger foundation. Because it's no longer a vision, because we already have evidence that it actually works, but now we're going to scale it up. So I'm Dr. Jordan Smith. I thank you for taking time to listen to this presentation. Not sure how many people are going to listen to it, but I'm specifically sending out a link to it. And here's the offer, my Godfather close, that I offer for you. For you to become a partner, and for you to be able to building a solution to reduce your tardies, to reduce your chronic absenteeism, is going to cost you absolutely no money out of your pocket for one semester. That means one semester, you pay absolutely nothing. For one semester, you get me working alongside a teacher or teachers that you pick to help them customize a solution for you. And then at the end of the semester, you have a choice. You can evaluate the results. And if you don't see value, you don't have to pay. Plain and simple. That's the offer. Now, I'm learning this from Jason. Jason uses a system that's used on the Google Sheets. The system that I'm going to be teaching is this little step up. The same concepts, the same foundation, but it's a lot more robust in what it's actually going to be doing. So right after this video, I'm going to show you a 4-minute video that kind of sums up that thing. But this is Dr. Smith. Inside the description for this YouTube video, because I'm putting this on YouTube and airing it out, you will see a link in there to go and apply. Again, I'm looking for 30 schools, 30 continuation schools, and you get the software and applications free because I've actually went out and purchased it. That's how strongly I believe in this. The question is, do you believe in it? Because I can guarantee you, if you don't start taking some steps that has already been proven, your attendance rate is going to be the same. Guarantee it. This is Dr. Smith. Pay attention and listen to the next 5-minute video. It kind of sums up what we just got through sharing right now. I'm Dr. Jordan Smith. I'm inviting you to become an Education Innovation Sandbox founding partner. Have a day. This is Dr. Smith. What if I told you that a single AI-powered shift could reduce your school's tardiness by 75%? Most schools have an information problem. We're solving the intervention problem. Now imagine using that same AI-powered system as the first step toward reducing chronic absenteeism across your campus. If you're a principal, assistant principal, or district leader, this may be one of the most exciting opportunities you'll see this year. Hi, I'm Dr. Jordan Smith. I'm a retired high school mathematics teacher, educational leadership consultant, and former WASC chair. With nearly 20 years of experience helping schools improve student outcomes through innovation, throughout my career, I've learned something important. Schools don't have an attendance information problem. They have a communication and intervention problem. Teachers spend hours contacting parents. Attendance clerks repeat the same tasks every day. Counselors manually document interventions. Administrators spend valuable time chasing paperwork instead of supporting students. Meanwhile, students continue missing valuable instructional time. Recently, I discovered a teacher who created an automated tardy system using nothing more than Google Sheets and Gmail. Over 2 years, that simple system helped reduce tardies by as much as 75%. That inspired one important question. What could schools accomplish if we combined automation with today's AI technology? Instead of only sending emails, imagine automatically sending text messages, voice AI calling parents, two-way AI conversations that identify transportation or family challenges, automatic counselor notifications, administrator dashboards, attendance intervention pipelines, and documentation completed automatically. That's exactly what we're building. Our long-term mission is helping schools reduce chronic absenteeism, but we're starting with tardies. Because tardiness is often the earliest warning sign. When students begin arriving late repeatedly, grades begin slipping, engagement decreases, behavior referrals often increase, and many students eventually become chronically absent. By identifying and supporting students earlier, schools have an opportunity to intervene before attendance problems become much more difficult to solve. Today's proof of concept is reducing tardies. Tomorrow's vision is improving attendance school-wide. That's why we're launching the Educator Innovation Sandbox Founding Partner Program. We're looking for a limited number of schools that want to help us build and refine the next generation of attendance intervention systems. Here's how it works. We'll work directly with your school to build a customized attendance automation system based on your bell schedule, your tardy policy, your intervention process, your staff, and your communication preferences. This isn't a generic software package. As a founding partner school, your entire first semester is free. Not a demo, not a limited trial, a fully customized implementation. Together, we'll measure meaningful outcomes, including reduction in tardies, parent engagement, and staff time saved, intervention response rates, and attendance trends. At the end of the semester, your leadership team decides. If you don't believe the platform delivered meaningful value for your school, you're under absolutely no obligation to continue. Our goal is to earn your trust through measurable results, not long-term contracts. If you're ready to modernize your attendance process, our goal is to earn your trust through measurable results, not long-term contracts. If you're ready to modernize your attendance process, click the link below and submit your application today. Because we're working closely with each campus, participation is limited. Participation is limited to a small group of schools during this beta phase. Let's build the future of attendance intervention together. I'm Dr. Jordan Smith. I look forward to working with you inside the Educator Innovation Sandbox. The future is calling.